As we await Donald Trump's speech tonight, we look at the stakes for Coloradans' personal rights if he's reelected. President Biden appears to be considering calls to step aside. The Colorado native turned White House correspondent talks about Biden's thought process and how he goes about covering the president.
There is certainly a lot of pressure.
The cause of a wildfire in Arapahoe County? A flaming bird carcass falling from the sky. And lest you think America is unraveling and flaming birds are falling from the sky, both of which are true, we find the American spirit alive and well at something called chainsaws and chuck wagons. Hold on, America. This is next. Here we are on Donald Trump's big night. Yet conversation about whether President Joe Biden is closer to dropping out of the race is dominating the headlines. Trump says he will deliver a different speech tonight as a result of last weekend's assassination attempt, trying now to convince Americans that the guy who's described his political opponents as vermin is now capable of promoting unity. So far, the calls for unity at the Republican National Convention have largely been focused on uniting the party behind Trump while attacking Democrats as a threat to America. Trump's former opponents, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, they fell in line at the convention. Trump has suggested that his speech tonight will not focus on attacks against others. Trump told the Washington Examiner he scrapped his original speech, which he described as brutal, on his political enemies in an attempt to, quote unquote, bring the country together. Quite literally, in a few hours, we shall see. All this week during the RNC, we've been taking an in-depth look at the stakes for Colorado if Trump wins the second term. Tonight, what a Trump win would mean for Coloradans' personal rights. This is Decision 2024, the stakes for Colorado. Here's politics guy Marshall Zellinger.
With that signature, Democratic Governor Jared Polis put abortion rights protections into state law 2 years ago. Voters in November will decide if this should be etched into the state's constitution. The Republican Party platform says this is a state issue.
I believe this is following a similar course as slavery, where it was first left up to the states, and then eventually it came back on a national level to say this is a human rights issue.
Comparing abortion restrictions to slavery is Faye Barnhart with Colorado Life Initiative. She tried and failed to get an issue on the ballot for November defining a fetus as a person under the 14th Amendment. No person shall be denied life or liberty without due process.
I believe if we applied the 14th Amendment, we could apply that to all living human beings.
Colorado is insulated unless there is a federal ban at the congressional level passed and then signed into law by the president.
Karen Middleton is the president of Cobalt and the co-chair for the campaign trying to put abortion access in Colorado's constitution.
I'm very suspicious of the platform as it's written, and what I'm seeing is that they are really out to overturn any abortion protections left in the country. They want a national ban.
While Trump has touted being responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, he is not currently calling for a national abortion ban.
For 52 years, people have wanted to end Roe v. Wade to get it back to the states. We did that.
LGBTQ rights could be a focus under another Trump presidency, with punishments for teachers and educators that allow for gender neutrality.
They will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding.
Could you imagine a school telling me that I couldn't dress the way that I wanted to dress to come to school every single day simply because it looked more masculine than it did feminine? What decade are we in? You know, that is absurd.
Democratic State Representative Leslie Herod is part of the LGBTQ plus caucus. She warns that Colorado taxpayers could be negatively impacted for federal policies that limit gender neutrality.
If a school were to create gender-affirming bathrooms or say that we have gender-neutral bathrooms, that school can lose federal funding. Will Colorado taxpayers then have to foot the bill for the millions of dollars of federal funding that will no longer be coming into our state because we are gender-affirming? Yes. That's a huge problem.
I voted for him twice already. I'm going to vote for him again. That doesn't mean that we all have to line up lockstep.
Republican State Representative Lisa Frizzell is a Trump supporter who last year sponsored a bill banning transgender students from participating in women's sports, basing participation on the person's biological sex at birth.
I do believe that if you're a biological male, that you should participate in men's sports, not women's sports.
Trump's platform also calls for the same, but Frizzell believes it is a local issue.
Policy matters as important as this should not be broad brushed by the federal government.
Trump's platform, as we've talked about, includes many parts of Project 2025. The topic of gender in schools is expanded in Project 2025, and when it comes to books, it calls for educators and librarians to be classed as registered sex offenders for producing or distributing books with transgendered topics. I've not seen Trump explicit on that issue. That may be where his platform and Project 2025 differ a little bit, or we just haven't heard him on that.
You see a lot of moves by Colorado Democrats in recent years to put more and more rights into the state constitution, right, with the idea that as long as some things remain states' rights issues, that they can kind of keep this, I guess, like a left island or a blue island among a sea of red states.
Sure, and it would take an act of Congress, so House and Senate, to pass something signed by the president to make something national. Look at the concern of President Biden and the concern last week of Senator Bennett saying you're going to take the House and Senate with you. That's where, even if you put it in the state law or state constitution, it could be at risk nationally.
Marcia Zellinger, thank you very much. Reuters reports that Democratic Senator John Hickenlooper of Colorado says that President Joe Biden is moving closer to doing the best thing for America, and that best thing, according to Hickenlooper, is Biden dropping his reelection campaign. A series of reports today suggests that pressure on Biden is only growing, and that he is now at least somewhat open to an exit. Reuters also reports that Biden is soul-searching about the decision. New York Times says that people close to Biden say he appears to accept that he may have to leave the race. The Associated Press reports former President Barack Obama has privately told Democrats that Biden needs to consider the viability of his campaign. The AP also reports that former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has presented Biden with polling showing that he cannot likely defeat Donald Trump in November. Our next conversation tonight is with the Reuters White House correspondent behind that reporting I mentioned. It's Colorado native Jeff Mason. From where I sit in Colorado, Biden's exit from the race is feeling more and more inevitable, but you sit a lot closer to this. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's certainly moving in that direction based on the sources I've spoken to, including Senator Hickenlooper, who made clear in our interview that he's a big fan of Joe Biden. And he talked about the grief that the party has and that people like he have at seeing someone who they believe to be perhaps the best president of their lifetimes. That's what Hickenlooper said, needing to step aside, but just not being the person right now for this moment to lead the party to victory.
Yeah, you start to see that door being cracked open by the Biden team. Based on what you know about the president from covering him in the White House, if he goes, what will be the argument that breaks through?
I think the argument that will break through is the one that he actually articulated at that press conference, which is if someone can show him there's no way you can win, then he will put party ahead of himself. He wants there to be a Democrat in the White House next year. He wants Donald Trump to be defeated. He has long thought that he's the best person to do that. And if he's able to be convinced through polling, through his advisors, who up until now have been very supportive, or otherwise through other Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and the other calls, or the other lawmakers who have called for him to step aside, if they can make that argument and prove it to him substantially that he's not in a position to win, then I think he would step aside.
When my conversation with Reuters' Jeff Mason continues, how he prepares for moments like President Biden's first big press conference after the debate flop, what's happening behind the scenes, he was called on first, and what he says is fair criticism of journalism these days. Hundreds of affordable housing units will soon be built across Colorado using income tax revenue that was set aside by voters in 2022. That includes more than 300 units in Denver, where Mayor Mike Johnston is asking voters for even more money for affordable housing. Statewide, nearly $40 million in funding for 623 affordable housing units in Denver, Fort Collins, Montrose, Lone Tree, Craig. It's the first round of funding from Proposition 123's Equity Program, which funds low and middle income multifamily housing projects. Voters approved the funding in 2022, which sets aside 0.1% of the state's income tax revenue for affordable housing. First round of projects includes a 340-unit development on the Auraria campus in Denver. Last week, Mayor Johnston said that the statewide funding is not going to be enough for Denver, so he proposed a citywide sales tax increase for November. The ballot proposal would add a 0.5% sales tax increase to Denver's current 8.81% sales tax, bringing in an estimated $100 million a year for affordable housing.
I don't know. You just want to be sure that you get through the question and set an appropriate tone as well.
Coloradan turned White House correspondent Jeff Mason talks about questioning the president with America watching and criticism of political reporting these days. We didn't start the fire, Billy Joel said. It was a flaming bird carcass. Actually, Billy Joel said nothing about the bizarre business that just went down in Arapahoe County. And artists trading in brushes for some heavy machinery. That's next. When President Biden held his high-stakes news conference following the NATO summit right after his disastrous debate, the first journalist called on for a question was a former 9 News intern. These days, Jeff Mason is the Reuters White House Correspondent. The Colorado native who grew up in Aurora and Littleton, graduate of Heritage High School, joined me for today's next conversation.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
We were all sort of on pins and needles to see how he would do at that press conference, and mine was the first question, as you noted, and he answered it, but he made that verbal misstep.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
That ended up being one of the bigger quotes from that night.
Take our viewers inside the mechanics of those moments.
Well, I can definitely tell you that he doesn't know what I'm going to ask. I would never submit my questions in advance to the White House. We do sometimes get a heads up that we're going to be called on. As I tell my journalism students, you have to be ready either way. So if you think you're going to get called on or you're not sure if you're going to get called on, it's always smart to have a whole list of questions. And you don't always know what order you're going to be called on. So in some ways, though the pressure is high when you're first, it also kind of takes the pressure off once you've asked your question, because then you know you don't have to be going through your list either on paper or in your head and crossing off questions that other people are already asking.
There is a lot of criticism of the media these days. Donald Trump has made it his brand. The right has embraced that. There's a tremendous onslaught of media criticism from the left these days in terms of how President Biden's fitness to serve is being covered. From a personal perspective, just as one journalist, but one who has a powerful platform covering the White House for Reuters, what are you trying to do every day as a journalist?
What I'm trying to do every day, Kyle, is no doubt what you're trying to do every day too, and that's just tell the truth and get the facts out there and tell stories that matter to people, that matter to voters, that matter to people who are making decisions based on what's going on in the political world. But the most important thing to me is just to be accurate. It's important as well to be fast. We're always competing with each other in the world of journalism, but the most important thing is to be accurate. And I think the media should be and is open to constructive criticism, and I get feedback all the time. I know you do too. And I take it seriously if I feel like there's something that is legit or something that I could have done better. But I will tell you that every day, every single day that I'm in this job, I work to stay neutral and to get the news out fairly, accurately, and speedily. And it's a challenge, and it is a privilege.
My full conversation with Reuters White House correspondent Jeff Mason is on the next YouTube channel and 9news.com. The phoenix is the mythical bird that rises from the ashes. But the crispy bird carcass that sparked a grass fire in Byers didn't rise at all. That thing just fell. The flaming former flapper plopped onto the plains and it laid there, sparking a grass fire in Arapahoe County over the weekend. Our team put together this reenactment because we have too much time on our hands. Investigators from Strasburg and Byers Fire say that this small bird flew into electrical equipment. Bird caught fire. The quote-unquote flaming carcass fell to the ground where it ignited the grass. That fire grew to more than 1,100 acres, was eventually named the Quail Hollow Fire. Don't know if the burning bird was a quail or not. Sheriff's office says the fire destroyed one home, at least 7 outbuildings. No one was hurt, except, of course, the bird. Lauren, that's how it happened. They say that is how it happened, right there, just like you saw on TV.
You know, that's a lot to ponder on this Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, just say next time there's a fire and everybody thinks, well, it was either a human or it was lightning.
Neither.
We in the know can be like, hold up. What if it was a flaming bird carcass?
That it happens, I guess. I don't disagree with the logic.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Well, as we go through the rest of the, next couple of days, we're going to continue to watch for scattered showers and storms, which we desperately need across the state as we've been very dry this season. We've also been pretty warm, but today we were very seasonal for this time of year. Temperatures right around where they should be. We saw those highs in the low 90s. Right now across the Denver metro area, we're in the lower to middle 80s. Now, as we look at our live radar, we've been monitoring this system churning over the Four Corners region. That's been bringing scattered showers and storms across the western slope and into the high country, finally pushing in to the Front Range earlier this evening. And later this evening, we're going to be watching for it to move its way eastward into the plains. But we take a little tour across Colorado where we can see one storm south of Walden, some rain showers between Glenwood Springs and Eagle. We did get some light rain showers pushing through downtown Denver, but right now we're looking for a storm just west of Raymer. We're also seeing some storms from Byers all the way through Agate and then just west of Lyman here, pushing their way toward Colorado Springs, where we have had severe thunderstorm warnings that were allowed to expire. We're also watching for some lighter rain showers off to the west there. As we go through the rest of the evening, this line of strong storms pushes its way into the plains later tonight and eventually out of Colorado during the overnight hours. We can also see that from our zoomed in view here of our futurecast, where we're watching for those stronger storms to make their way eastward. As far as severe weather is concerned, we're just looking for some heavy downpours, gusty winds, maybe some hail as these storms make their way toward the plains.
We're a unique group of people with a unique profession.
Chainsaw artists are carving their own niche. This week they're in Colorado. At an art competition up in Frederick, beauty is in the eye of the chainsaw holder.
It has teeth and it goes fast and it's rough and rugged and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm a chainsaw carver. We forget that part?
It's not just for cutting wood.
You know, they call it the world's most dangerous tool.
We're making awesome artwork out of pieces of wood that were used to be trees. It's called repurposing.
Sometimes if you have a unique piece of wood, it does kind of talk to you. Like you can see shapes in it, whether it be a snail or a snake or a bird.
Sometimes the wood's like, I want to be a turtle.
This particular stump, I had a plan of doing a skeleton bonefish.
I'm gonna have a bighorn sheep kind of up on his front feet.
Right now I am making a soaring eagles. It's gonna be two eagles soaring side by side.
But I kind of made it so people could sit on them too, so I figured kids would climb up on them and stuff so they could have fun, but it's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. We really enjoy doing it. We really enjoy, you know, the excitement people get from seeing the stuff.
You know, it's real hard work, but when I finish a carving and people just smile looking at it, or sometimes they're scared, depends on what I carve. I do carve some creepy stuff, but it just makes me happy. And to see people happy, and I don't feel like I ever work till I wake up the next day. Don't try wearing flip-flops at home.
Every now and then I hear something truly unique and I write it down. Sometimes the wood's like, I want to be a turtle. Back with your feedback. A lot of the feedbacks tonight on a crispy chicken. Pam says, laughed so hard with the tongue twister on the flying bird story, I was crying. The former flying flapper, poor little guy, ended up in the news. Ken said, could not have described that incident better. Ken, all credit goes to Jeff Sawtell. He's our video editor. He is the one that put together that highly technical animation. He's also the one who helps me do the fake campaign ads that sometimes we do during political season. Think we should bring those back? No shortage of material.